Murder victim. Candy Rogers was a 9-year-old girl when she disappeared from her home on March 6, 1959. Who knew her family had to wait more than 60 years for justice to be served? In March 1959, 9-year-old Candy Rogers vanished from Spokane while selling mints in her neighborhood, sparking a desperate search. After 2 agonizing weeks, the grim discovery of her body in a remote woodland marked a tragic end to her life, leaving her community in shock and her family shattered. Despite exhaustive efforts by detectives, the case grew cold, unsolved for over 60 years, casting a long shadow of frustration and heartache. The mystery of Candy's fate, whether lost and fallen to nature or subjected to a more sinister end, haunted many. It wasn't until decades later that the truth finally emerged, offering a belated glimpse of justice for Candy. This story, a blend of sorrow, perseverance, and the relentless quest for truth, reflects the painful journey of those seeking closure in a case that remained one of the oldest to be solved, underlining the enduring impact of Candy's untimely death. In 1959, and in the heart of a tight-knit community of Spokane, Washington, Candy Rogers is born to Elaine and Carl Rogers, the apple of their eye. But then, life throws a curveball. Elaine and Carl's marriage hits the rocks. They split, leaving Candy under her mom's wing. Fast forward, Candy's 9, living the dream of every kid in her age, joining the Bluebirds, embracing nature, community service, you name it. She's the kind of kid everyone knows and loves. But here's where it takes a dark turn. Just when everything seemed bright, tragedy strikes. Candy, this lively, beloved girl, is suddenly taken from us, sending shockwaves to the community. Now let me pause here. Think about it. A close-knit community, a child cherished by all, and then one day, everything changes. The initial investigation, let's just say it left many stones unturned, leaving folks with more questions than answers. March 6th, 1959. A typical Friday, and like any kid, Candy couldn't wait to wrap up the school week, hang with friends, and yeah, she had a bit on her plate too. She's part of the Bluebirds, see, and they're hustling to raise funds. Candy's got her mission: sell 7 boxes of campfire mints. Sounds simple, right? Get permission from her mom, Elaine, snag a cookie, a quick play with the dog, and off she goes. Boxes in tow, around 4 p.m. The neighborhood's buzzing with kids on similar quests, but here's the kicker: Candy never makes it back home. Fast forward to 5:30, Elaine's worry meter's hitting the red. Candy's punctuality is clockwork, so this, out of character. By 6, panic's settling in. Calls are made, a search party forms. They're asking around, but all they get are glimpses of Candy, her hands full of mints. No sign of where she may have headed next. A twist in the tale. Around 7 p.m., Candy's granddad and his buddies dodge a speeding car. Close call, but it barely dents their resolve. Darkness creeps in, complicating their search, yet they push on, hope kindling. The police and sheriff's deputies join the fray, but as night tightens its grip, all they find are 6 campfire mint boxes scattered on padded drive, one short of what Candy had. Elaine's night is agony. Sleep's a stranger. Worry and fear, constant companions. Dawn breaks with the city awakening to the news. Candy is missing. The search scales up. Cops on horseback, vehicles, and even the Air Force chips in with a chopper. But fate's cruel, a wire unseen, a crash into Spokane River. 3 lives lost in a blink. The search for Candy, now tinged with tragedy, grows more desperate yet no closer to finding her. Let's get real. This isn't just a story. It's a heartache that stretched days into weeks, weeks into an endless wait. Elaine, a mother frozen in time, her life a shadow of what ifs, and us? We're left grappling with the harsh truths of a world where not every story gets its neatly tied ending, where justice seems just out of reach. An echo of a girl's laughter fades into silence. So let's dive into a story that's as haunting as it's heartbreaking. Imagine for a moment it's been 16 days of silence, 16 days of questions with no answers, and then out of nowhere, discovering the woods changes everything. It's March 22nd, 1956. Two airmen, Howard Lawrence and Richard Bergen, are out there in the wilderness, hunting woodchucks, of all things, in a wooded area about 7 miles from a small town. They stumble across a small clearing, and lo and behold, a pair of blue suede shoes. Not just any shoes, but the kind that scream innocence, the kind that a child would wear. How did these shoes end up here, so far from the buzz of town life? Now these guys, they're puzzled, right? They wait around thinking someone might pop out looking for them, but no one does. They take the shoes right back with them, and word spreads like wildfire. The shoes catch the attention of the police, who have a hunch that they might belong to a little girl named Candy, who's been missing. They call in Candy's grandfather, who confirms that they're similar to the ones that Candy wore. That's when the search zeroes in on this secluded spot in the woods. But here's the kicker. It's getting dark, and a proper search has to wait till morning. Next day, a team of officers and volunteers comb through the area, and it's not long before they find something. A small mound hidden under brush and pine needles. And there, a devastating discovery, the decomposed body of a child, recognized immediately as Candy. The scene is heart-wrenching, her clothes torn, her feet bound, a strip of cloth around her neck. The community's reaction? Shock, fear, a collective mourning for a life snatched away too soon. The police are on high alert, vowing to leave no stone unturned. They suspect a serial killer, Hugh Bayard Morse, known for his particular liking for grape gum, a detail that strangely connects to a purple smear found on Candy's clothes. But with no concrete evidence, Morse remains a suspect. The case grows cold, and the questions keep piling up. Fast forward to years later, and the pain hasn't eased. Candy's father Carl, overwhelmed by grief, takes his own life. It's a tragedy that adds another layer of sorrow to an already heartbreaking story. And as the years roll by, Candy's memory fades from public consciousness, but not for her family or the detectives committed to finding answers. This is the kind of case that's been the giant log jam for cold cases, and in Spokane, I keep saying that it's the Mount Everest of our cold cases, the one that we could never seem to overcome, but at the same time, nobody ever forgot, said Detective Zach Stormont of the Spokane Police Department for Major Crimes. Now here's where I want to leave you with something to think about. In a case wrapped in mystery with leads that lead nowhere and suspects that never quite fit the bill, what does justice look like? When years pass, when the world moves on, how do we honor the memory of those lost and keep the flame of hope alive for answers? This is just a recount of events. It's a tale that touches the core of our fears, our frustrations with systems that sometimes fail us, and the relentless pursuit of truth. So I ask you, what's your take on this? How do we keep the stories of the Candy Rogers of the world from fading into the background? And what steps can we take to ensure that justice, no matter how delayed, is ultimately served? It's 2001 and we're stepping into a world where DNA technology, once the stuff of sci-fi, becomes a beacon of hope for cold cases. Candy Rogers' case, a heart-wrenching mystery from the 1950s, suddenly gets a shot at a resolution. The police, holding onto Candy's clothes like a treasure trove of clues, decide it's time to dive into the DNA game. They're looking for the one piece of evidence that could point to the killer. So they get to work, extracting DNA from what seems like an unlikely hero, Candy's underwear. It's a breakthrough moment. There's this palpable buzz among the detectives. You can almost feel their anticipation growing. They're thinking, this is it. We're about to crack a case that's been haunting us for decades. They create a DNA profile and upload it to the database, fingers crossed, hoping for a hit. But then the momentum crashes. No match. They even test it against Hugh Morse, the guy who's been on the radar, but no dice. It's like being on the verge of finishing a puzzle only to find out that the last piece is missing. Fast forward now to 2006 and another blow hits. Candy's mom passes away, never knowing who took her daughter. It's a somber note in a saga that's had too few highs and too many lows. Flash forward to 2017, and there's this groundbreaking shift in the world of crime solving. Forensic genetic genealogy, it's like the CSI stuff you see on TV, but mixed with the kind of family tree research you do on a lazy Sunday afternoon. Detectives who've been holding onto the silver hope decide it's time to revisit Candy's case with this new tool. Enter Brittany Wright, a forensic scientist with a knack for piecing together puzzles from the past. She's got this sample, right? Been sitting in a freezer since 2001. Brittany's move? She double checks it against the original DNA profile from back in the day. Confirmed match. But here's the kicker. When they try to take it further to unlock its secrets using this fancy new genealogy method, they hit a wall. The sample's too degraded, and just like that, hopes are dashed. It's like being handed the key to a lock only to find out that it's been rusted shut. But as fate would have it, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's this lab, Othram, down in Texas, that's like the DNA equivalent of a miracle worker. Brittany reaches out, half hopeful, half not wanting to jinx it. And bingo, they're in business. Fast forward 6 months, and what do you know? They've got a lead, 3 brothers, all long gone. But one of them, John, he's our guy. Now imagine learning your father, whom you thought you knew, harbored a dark secret. That's what Kathy, John's daughter, faced. Detectives come knocking, and Kathy, already piecing together the puzzle, agrees to help. Her DNA is the missing link, making it millions of times more likely that her dad was behind it all. It's a revelation that flips her world upside down. John, as it turns out, was no stranger to trouble. His past, marked by violence, only solidifies the detective's suspicions. And get this, he lived just a mile from Candy's home. It's pieces of a puzzle, fitting together decades later. With Kathy's blessing, detectives make a bold move. They exhume John's body a step that's as final as it gets. And there it is, the confirmation they've been seeking. John was the monster behind Candy's murder. It wasn't an escape, but he got to die with people thinking he was an upstanding man, and he wasn't. Kathy also rendered a public apology for her father's crime and the pain it caused the murder girl's family. "I'm very sorry for what my dad did, that he took her life horribly," she said. "I hope that he gives peace, knowing that even though it's not really justice because he doesn't get any punishment, his name has this on it now and they can know that it's solved." Joanne Paus, a cousin of Candy's relatives, however, remains saddened by the fact that her grandparents and parents did not get to know who killed her. They never saw him pay or die for it or whatever. They went to their grave not knowing, and that was hard, Joanne said. Through a single man's actions, a family was cast into misery, hidden in doubt for over 6 decades. Nonetheless, the persistent diligence of multiple detective generations unveiled his identity, offering the hurt-kin essential relief. Was John's murder of Candy's planned or a random deed? Share your thoughts below. That brings us to the sad, tragic ending of Candy Rogers' case, 1959. For more videos like this, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to my channel.